Speaking to you from beautiful Philadelphia. Let's grapple with the topic of copying. There's something I hear a lot, and that is that all art form, there's nothing original. It's all adapted from something else. And I disagree with that for one reason, that people live in very different conditions than they did 100, 200 years ago, and their stories change. Today there are so many stories about global, where the earth is destroyed by a meteor or an electromagnetic wave or world destruction. And a few hundred years ago, people didn't have a global sense. This was not part of their inner psyche, and so there were not stories about the annihilation of the human race. At least not the kinds of stories we have today. So essentially, stories fulfill at least one role, and many roles, but one of the roles is that they help us make sense of our real lives. And our real lives are very different even than they were a couple of decades ago, and so the stories change. Now, the whole topic that, I can understand why there is this idea floating out there that all art is really just copying from other forms of art or from the news, and this is a real situation for artists. You get art that is announced to be too cliche, meaning it's using things that are too riffed upon too often, or there's art that's too much of a knockoff, where when someone is viewing that art, they're like, this is verbatim exactly the way this other work of art was played out. Now, I have many ideas that I'll cover in later videos dealing with this whole situation, but for now, I'll leave you just with one of them, and that is that our subconscious is much better at copying than our conscious minds are, because when our subconscious is influenced by something or takes an idea and runs with it, it's a lot more transmuted, it's a lot more mixed in with this other, it's a lot more worked on and changed and comes out as something very different, and often revealing new insight about that original thing that influenced it, that original idea. On one hand, you enjoy your favorite works of fiction, and on the other hand, you're continually working on being a fiction writer and improving, growing as a fiction writer. In terms of being influenced, all you need to do is enjoy those works of fiction. When you do that, your subconscious is taking all of these parts of the art form and learning how to take them apart and reassemble them into art that has never been seen before. All you have to do, the conscious mind, is enjoy your favorite works of fiction, and by doing that, your subconscious is going to do a better job at using that information, that is, your favorite works of fiction, to improve your writing. That information you take in will find itself in new forms on the page you're writing on. Keeping that in mind, a continuation from last week's video, more tearjerkers known to work very well in modern day fiction. Again, I'm adapting this list from the website tvtropes.org. It's a great website if you want to do further study and further appreciation of art. I highly recommend it. There's the dead and not knowing it. So you have a character or characters who think they're alive, and usually the audience thinks they're alive, and through a reveal later on everyone realizes that no, actually they died and they had amnesia of their own death. And usually what happens is after this, then they really do cease to exist. They are either taken away by the light or fade away, or no longer can operate in the location where the story takes place. Then you have all I want to be is normal, or all I want is to be loved, or I can't be loved, I'm a monster or a robot. And this can take on a lot of different forms. So you might have, like, let's say on a team, one of the characters is a hero monster type character who does a lot of good, and at one point falls in love with another character, and it's unrequited love because that character, the initial character, is a monster, and so they have to go off and deal with this. The fact that this great force, this great operative in a story still is lacking normality, or the ability to be human, or the ability to be in a loving relationship. Or how about defiant to the end? This is kind of the equal opposite to the monster that just won't die. This is when our hero goes into a hopeless situation and isn't just destroyed, but that it takes 20 minutes for our poor hero to be destroyed. Action scene after another, just receiving mortal blows and continuing on, and in any way possible until the grueling end where the enemy is standing over, with these spears driven into our poor hero, and in the last minutes of life the hero is like trying to flick blood at the enemy that just conquered them.
As I continue with the rest of this video describing more tearjerkers known to work well in fiction, some people may think that I'm contradicting myself. That first I say you should just enjoy fiction, don't think about it, let the subconscious take care of it, and just write. That this list of tearjerkers is going against that advice. But when I say appreciate your favorite fiction, part of that is taking it apart. When we enjoy it, we learn about it, we educate ourselves, we become more conscious of what is happening in a story and appreciating it. And any kind of way that we can find to become more intelligent about the fiction we love, I highly recommend go for it. Do that learning, make those discoveries. And then, before you sit down to write, forget it all. You've enjoyed fiction in that way, either just by reading it or deconstructing it. Leave that behind you, forget it, and just write what you're going to write. And the learning you have done is also the learning that your subconscious has done, and it will find its way into your fiction. Generally speaking, when the subconscious learns something new, that information is a new possibility, and it does not describe a definite new way the subconscious can go, but creates new alternatives. So the subconscious will often think, oh, well, if it can be done that way, then how about in, this variation might work also, and this variation, and this variation. So it opens up the subconscious to new possibilities and points in a direction that the subconscious can try all kinds of new things that haven't been tried yet.
Or how about hero does not get the love interest? In a lot of stories, there's the plot, the main plot, and then the subplot is the romantic interest plot. And the most simple of these is where who is the hero's romantic interest. It's usually he or she is introduced in the beginning, and depending on how the story works, depending on what the subplot is, for whatever reason, what is happening is in the course of the story we're watching two storylines go along. So basically there are two conclusions that we are waiting for. Most often what happens is that, yes, the hero conquers the enemy and gets their love interest. But think about it. What if that subplot does not end that way? What if the hero ends up being lonely again, needing to be a loner again and go off into the wilderness all alone? And this can be used for a bittersweet ending and to a lot of different effect. It can be bittersweet for different reasons. Maybe our hero was really great at conquering the enemy, but somehow betrayed their love interest. There are so many different ways that not getting the love interest has played a part in stories, too numerous to mention here. Let's just say, to write a great story, you do not need a happy ending. And on the other hand, you don't need it to be a totally awful ending either. How about died in your arms or the deathbed last words? No, this can be a very poignant scene. Us being mortal is one of the greatest, if not the greatest, shaper of human psychology, of the human condition. So of course we're very frightened / curious of our final moments. And our stories throughout history are filled with someone who is still alive there at the last moments of life. To hear the words of that witness of, someone at the doors of death giving, whatever perspective they have. Here's a good one. The beloved main character or most adored character in the story suffers a pseudo-death or is believed to have died or is put into a death-like sleep. So there's a period of time where all the other characters and that whole story landscape has to suffer missing that character. And what happens to their lives, the gaping hole in their lives from this character being taken from them. It's an odd kind of tearjerker, because if you think about it, if you go to those stories and write it in so that those adored characters did actually die, they would become very different stories. But somehow through them suffering a pseudo-death or a death-like sleep, we are able to mourn their death in a way we never could if they really, really died. Or how about the character who makes a great sacrifice because they know they're going to die? So this could, as an example, you could have a team and there is the hero, but then there's another character who up until this point has played a minor part, but they find out that they are going to die, and so they are the one that goes into that situation where everyone knows it means they're going to be killed, and they make the great sacrifice. Or how about driven to suicide or driven to madness? In these two cases, this is where it depicts that whatever has happened to this character is so much greater than themselves. This depicts the human condition, that the life we find ourselves in is so much greater than any individual can completely understand or completely deal with on their own. And so in these stories, like our hero, driven to madness, inwardly they're broken beyond repair. They lose themselves. They may still talk and walk and eat and breathe, but what is going on inside, that person we knew, the hero, is no longer there. Or there's a situation where the hero can't just walk away from it, but is so destroyed by it that they end their own lives. Or how about dying alone? This can be a very haunting, these can be very haunting scenarios. Imagine a character out in the frozen tundra, keeping in radio contact with the rest of the team, but on that day when the temperature has dropped that fatal 15 more degrees, they're slowly freezing to death, the power is flickering out, and they're calling on the radio again and again, "Hello, can anyone hear me? Can anyone hear me?" And this is a dying alone scenario. "I finished the task. Please send in helicopters to rescue me now. Hello? Is anyone there?" This list of tearjerkers on tvtropes.org is exhaustive. I'm going to finish this video for now. I will continue later. So my advice, just enjoy it and forget it. When you forget it, your subconscious does not. So when you're doing something else, your subconscious has appreciated these different types of tearjerkers as much as your conscious mind has. It's like a brewing pot. There's all kinds of veggies and meats and spices that are simmering all day, all night in your subconscious, whether you're thinking about it or not. And out of your dreams, out of that pen, when you put it to page, new stories are going to emerge. I hope you enjoyed this video. If anything's come to your mind, please leave it in a comment. If you like my videos and want to get me back, please hit the like button, subscribe, leave a comment, tell a friend. Get the link out there through Reddit, Twitter, Facebook. Please, if you have the time, go to solomation.com and check out the work of fiction I'm working on called Terrible Immunity, illustrated, narrated, put up in episode video form, a bizarre alternate reality story. I hope your writing goes good. If you intend to make your audience cry, I hope their tears flow like rivers. I hope you enjoy your next few creative sessions and have a good day.